What is resonance? I want you to think a little bit about that. What is resonance? Is that a question that you've asked before? What is resonance? You know? Like we even use it in our language, right? In our words we say, "Oh, I resonate" or "I don't resonate." What's that really mean? We resonate or we don't resonate. And what has this resonance got to do with the new earth? What has this resonance got to do with your own enlightenment, your own realization? You see, when someone awakens to that vaster intelligence, it doesn't necessarily mean there will be a resonance, an automatic resonance. What's often experienced, and maybe some of you can relate to this, is as you awaken to this vast intelligence, there's a kind of recalibration that takes place within your whole system. The deeper you awaken to that resonance, the more there's going to be this recalibration happen, to the point where your whole physical system is kind of rearranged, completely transformed in a way. Why is this? Why is there such a transformation that happens? For some people, it appears to be very gradual. For others, it kind of happens really quickly in often a dramatic way. Many people talk about their life falling apart or dramatic change in circumstances and relationships and physical health conditions, states of mind, different states, blissful states or more disturbing states. It's like the whole system is shaken up. And then there has to be this kind of recalibration that happens. But why is that? Have you ever thought about why that is? You see, the whole artificial self or sense of self is the one that's been dictating everything. So what is this artificial self? This artificial self is essentially all of the past. It's all of the past of mankind. You can maybe call it like the world mind. So there's all this information. What is it? It is thought, language, concepts, ideas, belief systems, knowledge. But what is a thought? Have you ever really looked at what is the nature of a thought? You know? Have any of you really looked at that? What is a thought? The average person has 60,000 thoughts every day. But how many have stopped to ask what actually is a thought and where do the thoughts come from? And whether or not what they experience themselves to be is actually a product of thought. I would suggest nobody actually knows what thought is or experiences thought. They only know about thought or experience about thought, which is to say thoughts of thought. But what is thought itself? If you could break it down into its basic nature. Right now we're speaking. We're communicating through language, English language. There might be a language on the planet that you're not aware of. If I started to speak in that language, what would you hear? Right? What would you hear? You'd just hear sounds, noise. It'd make no meaning, no sense whatsoever. But because we've all been taught a language, the meaning of words, this word means this. There's a kind of collective agreement of what certain words mean, and then you put that together to create a meaning out of something. For most beings, their whole sense of identity is out of these meanings of language, of thought, of memory, of information. And that then creates this sense, this artificial sense of self. What does artificial mean? Artificial means man-made, isn't it? It's just man-made. So what most experience themselves to be is really just artificial. It's all man-made. It's all been passed on from generation to generation. It's the culture, it's the society, it's the agreements between the human mind. And then that gets carried through, and it becomes almost like a software that runs on the hardware of that body. If we can say that the body is kind of like a laptop or computer, and the software is that which is downloaded onto it or uploaded onto it. And then it can begin to change the way that it functions. That there's a living intelligence there, what we call the body. A pure intelligence. And it functions harmoniously if it's not interfered with. But when the software comes in that's been passed on, it begins to interfere with the natural way that that living intelligence functions. And then there is no resonance anymore. Because what is resonance? Even scientifically, resonance is the natural frequency of some object. So in this case, it is your body. Your body has a natural frequency to it. And when a natural frequency is influenced by a so-called external frequency that is of the same frequency, you get resonance. That's what it is, isn't it? When you say, I resonate with something or resonate with someone, you're tuning into that exact frequency. That's why it feels good. That's why it resonates or creates resonance. Like two tuning forks that are tuned to the same frequency. You chime one and then the other one chimes. So as you go about life, there are certain things that are resonating, certain things that are not resonating based on the natural frequency of that living organism. But if the living organism is interfered with by all of this artificial, programming of the past, then that living intelligence is not operating in its natural frequency. And also, it's not fully in touch with that vaster intelligence because the artificial self is kind of in the way. It's getting in between that. So it's interfering with that natural process. So when one awakens this vast intelligence and they start to see the illusion of this artificial intelligence, the artificial mind or self, then it can't survive. It's only survived because it's been given so much identification, so much attention, so much belief. That's what keeps it going. That's what keeps it in place. As you see that is an illusion more and more, that starts to fade off, kind of dissolve. And the whole body has been wired from that. It's been wired from this artificial information, this artificial memory. So now once that is dissolved and there is a kind of awakening or reconnection to this vast intelligence, and we'll get into what maybe this intelligence is in a moment, then the whole system has to recalibrate itself. And that can often be a challenging process. That not only affects the body, but then affects the way that you act, the behaviors, which then affects those around you, your life circumstances. There's this whole chain reaction that takes place. And it all comes from that very core. And so what determines this resonance is the ability for intelligence to be spread out equally throughout the whole system. Not in a lopsided way. What some of you might be aware of is that when someone goes into, let's say, self-realization, into this awakening, you might find you can become very spacey, ungrounded. So a kind of imbalance can happen. Or you become too focused on external circumstances, or too focused on the body and the health of the body. Anything that goes to the extreme in any direction is going to interfere with the resonance. Again, scientifically, they'll tell you that you have a natural object, you have an external frequency, or a natural frequency of an object, an external frequency. If they are a match, then it becomes amplified, it becomes powerful, becomes balanced. But if you raise the frequency of either one, it all of a sudden gets out of balance. So this is where people can face a lot of issues, of problems, when they have this initial awakening to the vast intelligence. But what is this intelligence? What does it mean to be intelligent? Is this something that you've thought about? What is intelligence? Society has its definitions of intelligence. In society, we tend to think that intelligence is the intellect, how sharp your intellect is, or how much information that you have, how much knowledge you have. But is there a deeper, a vaster intelligence? An unlimited intelligence? Or is this intelligence just simply memory? You see, it takes intelligence to write a book. It takes intelligence to make something. But that's still limited intelligence. There's always a limitation to that intelligence. Is there intelligence that is unlimited? The word intelligence in Latin means, or I think it's pronounced interlage. And it means to see between things. To see between things. So an intelligence, this vaster intelligence, is the ability to see in between things. What does that mean? What does it mean to see in between things? See, the artificial self, the language, can't see in between things. It can only see the meaning that it has. Have you noticed? Like a filter, like a projection. Through the artificial mind, people don't see things as they are. They see things as they think that they are, as they have knowledge of them to be. But you can only know what you have knowledge for. You can only know what you have information for. That becomes an experience. But how can you know something that is infinite? How can you know an infinite intelligence through something that is finite? So somehow you have to get outside of this limited intelligence, which is the memory, the knowledge, thought. Thought is just a sound, a word, a meaning, an agreed upon meaning. It's finite in nature, isn't it? I want you to think right now how much that applies to everything that you think that you know. What if we can't understand anything with that knowledge? What if we can't understand anything with thought because it's so limited? For practical things that we do in society, and just to get onto this call right now, right? We needed to use practical knowledge, practical thought to be able to log in and get on this call together. You needed to know that. That was some form of skill, some form of knowledge. You had to remember that. But for this body, this living intelligence, what does it really know? What does it need to know? There's some other intelligence at work, have you noticed? Do you make the body breathe? Do you make the cells in your body regenerate? Do you make the heartbeat and the blood pump around the body? Do you make the neurons fire off in your brain right now? There's some other intelligence that's at work. What is that intelligence? Is that thought? Is that the product of thought? Is that the product of knowledge? Does there need to be knowledge for the body to breathe itself? To pump the blood around the system? Or is there some deeper intelligence there at work that is beyond mental comprehension? And is that intelligence of the body any different than the whole of the universe? The nature is throughout the whole universe. Is, maybe in a way, the universe. What can be seen and what is not seen. So what is this intelligence? And when you connect to that intelligence, do you feel limited, or is there a sense of being unlimited? Even beyond the idea of the body, because the body, the idea of the body, the idea of male and female, is also just artificial information passed on from generation to generation, isn't it? The idea of the body. Through that knowledge, there is an image of the body. An image of the body, a self-image. If we say infinite intelligence, there can be an image of that. But can it be the image? Can this living intelligence, can nature be the image that we have? Or can it not be known like that? So through this artificial information, the knowledge is always limited, and so the experience is always going to be limited. And it's in that limited experience that things go round in a circle. Through that thought, where patterns, experiences are repeated, the theme remains the same. And at the center of that, there is a sense of self that thinks I'm the one having the experience. You might say the experiencer. But is the experiencer really any different than the experience? Or can we say that the experiencer is the experience because it is made of the same information, the same knowledge, thought? And so if you are not that, then what are you? And that's what the awakening to the infinite intelligence is. It is to go beyond that dream, beyond the dream that's created, beyond the mirage of this artificial sense of self. When that's in the way, there's no resonance. Everything's out of alignment. And so then the life circumstance that seems to come about is going to be out of alignment. So there's not then a true living of this natural intelligence or universal intelligence. So this intelligence, by the word itself of what it means etymologically, is to see in between things. The artificial mind doesn't see in between, it sees the divisions. It sees its own projection. But true intelligence can see the projection. I wonder if you get a sense of this. That the true intelligence can see through the projection, can see through the artificial, through thought. And not only can it see through that, but it is also filling all of the space. So through this awakening to this intelligence, the natural frequency of that body begins to amplify and resonate. And that intelligence can then permeate every cell of the body. There can be a kind of biological change that happens, even on the brain level. Many of you may know that it appears like the body is only using a certain amount of its capacity. Same with the brain. There's some limitation to that. What if the missing key to that is the awakening of this vast intelligence? What if the artificial software, the artificial sense of self, thought that has been passed on from generation to generation, society, culture, is the one that is compartmentalizing intelligence through that living intelligence, through that body, to the point where then most of that potential of that living organism is cut off. so that a being is only living through a small portion of it, and that becomes the experience. And then through that, it's like operating through like tunnel vision, like a limited scope. And so what happened here was, in this awakening to this vast intelligence, it was like it went from a tunnel vision state to this kind of panoramic perception. And what if there's no limit to that in a way? What if that can widen and widen and widen and widen, just like an aperture of a camera lens? If you think of a camera lens, you can have this kind of limited focus, but then you can kind of zoom out and get more of the picture in, more of the light in. You get more light in. More light in means enlightenment. The whole system illuminated. Every cell of the body. You see, realization is not the same as enlightenment, if we want to use these terms. Self-realization or awakening is only the opening to that. It is only the opening to that vast intelligence. Maybe many of you have had this self-realization, this awakening. But enlightenment is the ability to take on all of that throughout the whole system. Like a living realization, a living awakening, in which the whole system recalibrates to hold that. Then there is resonance. In enlightenment, there is a resonance, a powerful amplification, a powerful resonance. The aura of enlightenment. That, of course, then is going to affect and influence those that you come into contact with, and even those that you don't come into contact with. And this is where what you might call the new earth is tightly connected to that. The new earth, essentially, primarily, is this enlightenment. It is this embodiment. It is this resonance. And that resonance then starts to affect the decisions, the actions, the behaviors, in which then something else is created in what you call the external world, in which a community can shift, in which the values of a community shift, in which there is a new way of life. So you can trace that back. A new way of being starts with being a new way, and comes from realizing the real and seeing through the artificial. To see what you are, to see what you're not. And to embody what you are, to live what you are. To live that vast intelligence. And that means that vast intelligence has to become balanced within the system. So then there's a requirement to be very perceptive to the balance. To get really honest and say, is there a balance in the system, or is there some kind of imbalance there? And if so, can I awaken, go to this vast intelligence more deeply so that it can really begin to shine through in every area your being. But have you given your attention towards the unlimited? Are you willing to give your attention towards the unlimited?